Do you like supporting artists? Do you like nerdy things like Dungeons and Dragons? Then Co-op Creations SD is the store for you. You can find adorable dragons, menacing mind flayers, and jealous jelly cubes to accompany you on your adventures. Need a way to safely transport your math rocks? Then their homemade dice bags will keep your click-clacks warm. Stop on by their Etsy page soon, as stock is limited.
Hi, and welcome back to Campaigns of the Plains. I'm not the DM, so that's kind of weird, right? But this is not D&D, or even Monster of the Week. This is an out-of-character episode, and we're going to discuss everything from the campaign 2 up to the most recent episode that just came out last week. Yeah.
Well,
does that sound right?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Yeah, you got it.
So we're going to discuss everything. We're going to get into the nitty-gritty, the deep, dark secrets, are the love interests in the books about Marquise real?
Oh.
Yeah,
Are
that's
they
the
not?
main question everyone's wondering.
Yeah. That's what people care about.
Other pending or deep wanted questions, is Milos going to go and claim his right to the throne as king, right? Or
That's not how this works. That's not how any of this works.
or will Becky murder all of us?
That's how this works. That is exactly how this works.
It's debatable.
These are good questions. Why don't we dive in and see
Yeah.
what everyone has
Yeah,
to say
so
about that?
I feel
But
like
don't watch this unless you've actually, gone back and seen everything, because
Yeah.
we're gonna probably have some spoilers.
we're gonna
Or
have
do. I'm not a cop.
We're gonna have spoilers. We're going to talk about literally everything that's happened.
I think
So
really though this is great for a refresher, but I believe this could also work as a jumping off point if you are wanting to jump in now.
as it's coming
We
up,
can catch you up
Yeah.
to the events.
I agree.
27 2-hour episodes is a lot, granted. So if you've recently found us and you're kind of interested and need a little recap, this is probably a good episode for you.
Or if you're like me and you frequent D&D podcasts, you just listen to it at one point 3 speed, and those
Oh my
2-hour episodes become 45 minutes, an hour, something like that. I'm not good at math.
Yeah.
Chipmunks of the Plains. Got it.
So, that's another recommendation just personally for me. I listen to 3 different podcasts every week.
That is insane.
I know. Including I listen to ours too. Guys, hey, sometimes we do listen to our own content. So anyway, we have 4 chunks. I would like to say, if there were title cards, if the production manager would be putting in title cards,
It's right here.
yeah, there are 4 chunks, 4 title chunks that we are going to,
I can't read that.
They're not supposed to.
that we are going to talk about.
God, production manager.
Yeah, gosh,
Wow.
production manager. The first chunk, title card, insert title card here. Music, dancing, perfect, is, what is it? Adalas and Titan. Now, I think Adalas was a city. And I'm saying I think it was because me, personally, I have an awful memory. I remember nothing. So,
Yes. And
I'm
it's
not
the
so
capital
worried.
and the central Phaeton walled in.
yes.
That's what I got.
So, when we all got to Adalas, episode 1, day 1, we all kind of came in sets of 2, and all met each other kind of there. And the first question I have for everybody is what was everybody's first opinions of the other characters as we met them, because we met in a bit of a chaotic way, if you recall.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there were children that somebody may or may not have been attacking. Din tackled a child, They stole my summoner horn. We were in a carriage chasing them.
Damn children.
Right? I know, it was just they stole something from Milos, I think a scroll from him. Or no, they stole a scroll from Asher. Something, a scroll. Things were stolen
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so what was everybody's opinions of each other's characters?
Well, I would say that at the time, Becky, probably, I think she had like a very negative view of everyone around her, and that's really developed over time, as the character has grown. But not without giving away too much, she comes from kind of a rough life, and so she doesn't have a lot of trust for people at the moment she meets the rest of the party. And so I think it's just really hard for her to open herself up to the other characters when she first meets them. And she also has kind of taken on this tough exterior, this persona of it's my way or the highway. And so she thinks everyone else's opinions are stupid, and that she is going to be this all-powerful mage, and that she's going to have the answers, and she's going to take control of her life. So yeah, she's just very adversarial. Thank you. Adversarial at this point. So yeah, that's what's going through Becky's head when she meets everyone.
So Milos, having gone on a caravan ride, with Becky, I mean, they're cordial enough. So, I mean, it's not like you're a complete stranger, but he started off very friendly, right? Like, immediately wanted to start talking to you, and I feel like that's the way he kind of approaches all of his relations, right? Is he just wants to know more about like what's your situation, what you're going through, and trying to like see your perspective on everything. And I think initially when we had a bunch of stuff stolen from us, I think he was more worried about making sure that he did right by his mission at the time, and like just getting that figured out. And he was less interested in actually like figuring out your guys' deal. But once we got that figured out, it was easier for him to kind of open up a bit. But he was initially very focused and like, I wouldn't say scared necessarily, but like just very head down, like we need to find this thing, versus like, oh, what's your name, how are you, you know what I mean? He wasn't as cordial as he could have been, because of the urgency of how we got stuff stolen.
Gosh, this is just for Marquis, just street kids. This is their thing. I didn't get anything stolen, so I mean, I don't know. I see a bunch of people that are they're coming in and causing this ruckus. At this point, I'm just thinking, well, I should make sure they don't kill anyone, which I feel like almost happened.
It did. It did.
So yeah, opinions. Well, not really one to try and jump to conclusions about people, but first impressions were not super great.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Ellie's a very sweet being. I don't think that she has the capacity within her, especially at that time, to hate anyone or to judge anyone harshly. She comes from a place where she didn't have a lot of interactions with other people. So if someone is kind to her, then she will trust them and be their friend. Because again, very sweet, innocent being. As the story progresses, I think that she is learning more about human nature and all of that kind of fun stuff. She's a very interesting character for me to play. But I think first impressions of everybody is these people might help me, and I am in a strange place, so I will trust them.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But almost to a fault.
Almost to a fault. Ellie, that is Ellie to a T, especially in the beginning. Trusting to a fault. Too innocent. She was an innocent being. And after all of that chaos, like in the very first episode, honestly, a lot happens in the city. Like a whole lot happens in the city. But the biggest thing that happens is we'll meet a character called Joker, and he is the one who had them steal our stuff. And he wants us to help him basically smuggle ourselves into the church to find out what's going on with Titan. And that's a lot of things happen with all of that as well. But I think we do that first before we go to the far plane, right? If my timelines are right.
Yep.
So I guess related to like what's going on, Joker, we all know and we've all talked about it in character and out of character. We don't know if we trust him, especially in the beginning. We don't know if we trust him, and that has been our opinion of him basically the entire time we've known him. But what does everyone think of like the Titan situation? Like when we going in and most besides Ellie, no one else is really that connected with the church or the Aeons or anything like that. They don't know. You guys didn't know anything about them because it's not your bag, so they say. So what were your character's thoughts, I guess, about this thing happening, these things really existing, or I mean, you probably knew that they existed, but just this entering into this weird world of the faith and the Aeons and a little bit of government corruption, if I'm being honest.
Yeah. Well, you know, I think Becky really was, again, she doesn't trust people. She's kind of in it for herself. And so I think going in to like take on this mission, she really struggled with what's in it for me type of attitude. Ultimately, you know, I think she saw that this, you know, maybe following this group and doing these tasks, these chores were good for her in the long run because it might give her access to materials, to new powers, and that's ultimately what she's looking for. So, yeah, Becky, I think even at this point where we're at in the campaign, Becky isn't even sure, you know, what they're doing all this for, because to her, this is all still kind of secondary to her problems. Yeah. What about you?
I would probably say, like, there were definitely signs, like the corruption thing, that made Milos kind of on edge. But he didn't obviously know that Titan was corrupted and needed to replace and blah, 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 right? So I feel like seeing that chamber was really eye-opening for him because he had never seen, like, a physical manifestation of Titan before, right? Like, just, like, summons of it, but not like the actual thing. And so I think it was just like a brand new experience that it was scary, but like he got to experience this thing, and that's a big part of his journey, is he wants to experience more of the world than just what he's been grown up in. Because I mean, he's only lived in the Oasis his entire life. He's never left other than like the desert around it. So he's very interested in like how the world works, and obviously the faith is a big part of that. So learning more about that, like vicariously through Ellie, it intrigues him and makes him want to keep going, right? So seeing that and then like learning that the Grand Maester died, like I think there were some parallels there between his aunt and the Grand Maester, like what happens if my aunt dies, and so I think there was like some moments of terror and panic. Because if high-ranking officials like the Grand Maester can get murdered, then no one's safe, basically.
I'm interested in what Marquise thinks because he is an investigator, and for him to learn that the church, this big, basically political presence, because that's what they are, it has some corruption in it. I mean, that's got to set his brain on fire. Like, oh my gosh, can I take these people down? Maybe, I don't know.
So for him, like something like that isn't really the sort of he's not really in any of it for a score, right? Like, yes, he's an investigator, but he is more focused on investigating occurrences of death. And so hearing of the Grand Maester dying was definitely something that he would want to know more about, especially being the position that this person holds. But yeah, discovering the corruption, I think, to be honest, given the interactions he's had, he probably has had some sort of suspicions already of those sorts of things. I feel like anyone that's in kind of gets those sort of thoughts and ideas when they're close to something, and they can you can sort of see some of the cracks that may not be visible to just any passerby.
So after our while we were down in the temple, in the hole that we went in where they drug the crystal, we ran into Breeze, which was who Ellie was looking for. It's her friend, is another summoner, and he ends up sacrificing himself to become the new, I suppose, embodiment of Titan. And one of the questions that I have is, how is Ellie doing with that? It depends on what point in the story you're asking that question. Because right away, not good. And we learned as we played and as Ellie was able to summon that it affected her summoning in some way. That she's still really not sure. I mean, her summoning is different anyway. But I think what has discovered more recently in the campaign is that specifically in summoning Titan, she can't do it because she thinks it's Reese, but it's not Reese. And so I think that she's just still trying to recover, mend from that loss, because it's the only friend she's ever had. And then after that, we meet the Grand Maester, and he asks us, and he tells us something's targeting the Aeons, the Primals, and asks us to investigate it. And the first investigation that he sends us to, or asks us to look into, is Garuda. And then we leave. And while we're preparing and doing all the stuff to get ready to leave, we make a trip to, some of us make a trip to the Far Plane. And if you're not familiar with Final Fantasy lore, the Far Plane is a place that exists in Final Fantasy X. Basically where you could go and you could see visages of lost loved ones that were sent after they died. So the reason why Ellie wants to go there is because her dad had passed and she wanted to see him. The question that I have for other players who were there that looked to see somebody, who did they want to see, or who were they expecting to see? What did they think about the outcome of what they did see was there? Because Becky saw somebody that she didn't know, right? Oh.
Yeah, so I think the Far Plane was kind of like, for both me as a player and Becky as a character, complete surprise, because neither one of us really had any business or like goals set out for the Far Plane. Wasn't even on our radar. And in the end, it raised some interesting questions about who Becky is and who the visage was that presented itself to her, which it was a green tiefling man, which had horns similar to hers, which definitely raises some questions because she doesn't really know a father or anything like that. And again, no spoilers on anything that hasn't been revealed yet, but it was very intriguing, to say the least. She definitely pondered who this person could be for some time, and she is keeping an open mind about it, because ultimately Becky is, I think, on a journey not only to gain power for purposes she will reveal in her own time, but also it's a journey of self-discovery. She is a young, just barely teenage girl who is she's at an age where she's trying to figure out herself, and given her bad past, she's trying to figure out who she wants to be. So, and this just added another wrench to that whole situation.
Mm-hmm. And I think Milos, did you see your sibling?
I tried.
You tried to see a sibling.
Yeah, so I was told that I had a younger sister that had died. And my parents told me this. Basically, everyone has told me this. but I had heard at one point, I believe from my parents, that she isn't actually dead. And so I'm trying to find out more about her. And so when I went to the far plane, I wanted to see if she was dead, because she would be there, obviously, if she was. Unless she was unsent, I guess. But she wasn't there. So that is what I learned.
Are you wondering what your favorite wacky nerds are up to? Search for Campaigns of the Plains on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and make sure to follow and like us to keep up with all our content and news. You might also find exclusive content for fans only. Remember to catch us on YouTube every Friday at noon for a new episode of Campaigns of the Plains. Now another far-playing question. Marquise, you tried to enter the far plane and it bit back.
Yeah, it did.
It did not want you there, and it set off alarms, I think, and it was a very big ordeal. And that is how we found out very early on that Marquise is unsent in a way.
Yes.
And I'm interested, like, what was Marquis' opinion on what happened? Like, obviously Marquis knows what's happened to him in his life that would result in that, but did he think that that would be the reaction the far plane would have to him? And also, if he would have been able to get into the far plane, is there somebody that he would have wanted to try to reach out to see?
So, to answer the question on whether or not he knew if any of that would have happened, no, he did not. So he never really, given it's hard to really explain this because we haven't reached any point to
Right,
reveal
without giving stories.
Given what happened to make him be here, he made no conclusions that he was unsent.
Mm-hmm.
He thought something else happened, and he still isn't really sure because anything that he knows about how all of this stuff works, the rules seem to be changed a bit.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he did not know that would happen. That was not the reaction he was expecting. As far as why he went there, it was more just curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
If there was anyone, it was more of to try and see if maybe he could hear from a certain voice that later on Marquise does repeat the words told to him to the rest of the group, which we might get to that later, so I won't say that now.
I think that's a Mother Matoya House question, maybe.
Possibly.
Yeah, that I have. Yeah, I tell you what, Ellie was concerned. Her job as a summoner is to send unsent, and now I think it's one of those things where I don't think she fully believes that you're fully an unsent. There's something weird going on, right? But she still lives in constant fear she's going to accidentally send you.
I am too, a little.
And then one more question about this Ellie with the summoner for you guys, because I want to know what your characters maybe thought. You guys find out pretty quickly that Ellie's not a real summoner. What do you guys think about that?
Oh, well, I think Becky, I don't know how to put this in a nice way because it's Becky, but
put it in Becky's
I think Becky kind of pities you a little bit.
Oh.
Because I think Becky, believe it or not, sees a lot of herself in Ellie. Because she feels like she's been in a position where she doesn't have a power over a situation, and she, I think, in her own way, wants to be supportive of you to find your own power and your own place in the world, based on her own experiences. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what Becky really thinks of you.
I think it's interesting is Becky is going on one of those, like, she's young and she's trying to find out who she is quests, and Ellie's accidentally on the same quest. She's told the party she's in her 30s, but for the bunny, I don't remember what they're called.
Vieira.
The Vieira that's very young. That's just leaving the house young. So she is young for her people. So Becky and her are kind of on the same journey, but they're approaching it in a completely different ways. And I think that that's really an interesting dynamic.
Well, and I think we're kind of rubbing off on each other a little bit.
Yeah, I
Maybe
think
a little too much. Now.
I think so too. Ellie becomes, as the campaign goes on, Ellie definitely becomes more aggressive.
Yes, and I think Becky is trying to be a little more empathetic and caring for the other party members, and going so as far as to try and rescue Din the one time. So,
Right.
But we can get into that later.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the Garuda fight, wasn't it?
It was.
Yeah.
What about Milos?
Yeah, so initially seeing how poor your summoning skills are, I would probably be more like, how can I help her, like, hone her skills? Because I'm sure that there have been other geomancers, like, back at the Oasis who weren't super great, and, like, we just kind of took them under our wing, like, oh, let me show you how to do it. But, I mean, I don't know, like, Milos doesn't know how to summon, so it's like, okay, who can I help her find to help her get better, you know what I mean? And so it's almost like almost a maternal type of thing, or paternal or whatever. Like, it's almost like a parental, like, how can I help this child figure it out? But, I mean,
Is Milos the mom of the group?
I think he kind of is.
Yeah.
It's like,
You fall into that role.
I
yeah,
think
because, like,
he-
whenever
yeah.
Ellie is, like, feeling really down, he always gives her a big hug and just, like,
Mhm.
tries to cheer her up. So,
Yeah.
he's kind of the mom.
He's
which,
kind of the mom.
which makes sense from a Hrothgar society, because the men are, like, the housekeeper.
Okay.
Uh,
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's gender roles reversed, which is why the queens are the people who rule. It's a matriarchal
Yeah.
society.
And the boys
Viera
rule.
are the same. Well, the Viera are kind of the same way, kind of not, because the male and females are in different tribes. They only get together to make the babies, and then they leave.
Interesting.
And then the females raise all the children, and then if they're boy children, then they send them to live with the males when they're older.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Interesting.
What about Marquise?
Oh gosh, what does Marquise think about this? Well, early on, he didn't really realize that it was going to be that important that you be a capable summoner, and then realized coming into the Titan encounter that, oh great. And being told that we're going to have to deal with all of these different the word escapes me.
Aeons?
There you go, aeons. So then it's just like, okay, well, I guess it's not something that he is aware of. He knows about summoners, right? Like they're a part of society, but he doesn't know how to help.
There is no helping Ellie, you guys.
So, yeah, it most of this is just trying him, because he's just as much trying to really figure things out for himself, and then seeing the struggles that Ellie is having. It's just it's something else that he's just as things go on, just kind of like, I don't know, we'll just have to figure this out along the way, and hopefully we do, before people get hurt or worse. And well, yeah, there is a point where both of those almost happen.
Yep.
So yeah.
And do happen.
Yeah. Well, yes.
I will say, as a player perspective, purposely playing a character that is incompetent at what she does is really fun. But it's also very weird. So I'll tell you a little behind the scenes. When I was making my summoner, I was like, Josh, I kind of want to play a character that doesn't want to be doing what she has to do. Like, this isn't my job. Or not this isn't my job, but somebody else was supposed to be doing this. And I'm doing it because I have to, kind of thing. And she's very... she doesn't have a lot of faith in herself, which you guys have noticed. And I think that makes her I feel like she would be more confident at what she does if she believed in herself more, but she doesn't. She's getting better, and I think that her party is helping her get better.
We're all learning together.
We are all
It seems like how this whole summoning thing needs to work.
We're all in this.
Everyone's learning how to be a
together.
summoner.
Yes.
So, after the far plane, well, you guys, we needed a safe place to go. Because said corrupt church officials wanted to kill us. They wanted to kill everyone that was in that original Titan fight or down there looking for Titan to cover their tracks. So we were in danger. And, one of our locals in our party, Asher, he recommended a really nice bar called the Cubbyhole.
Yeah.
We spent quite a lot of time at the Cubbyhole, honestly.
We did.
What did everybody think of the Cubbyhole? What was your favorite scene, moment? I know mine. Always.
Favorite scene? Oh, I
think
don't know.
mine was the two guys that were peeking through the hole in the wall.
Yes.
I mean, the scene that comes to mind for me is actually when the whole party made the bed spin and Din's in the middle flapping her wings. And that I can't remember who gets. Did I get pushed in the swing by Asher? I think so. But yeah, and I mean, it was one of those scenes where Becky was like, she was a sheltered child, like she didn't know much of the world, but she had enough sense to know, oh, this is kind of a weird place. So it was definitely awkward for her, but I think it was one of the best moments in the campaign so far.
That was the
everything in the Cubbyhole.
That was the one place that the party collectively willed into existence, and Josh gave to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It was literally just like, this place exists.
We
now.
we joked about it
Yeah.
for a while, and then it appeared.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite part was Ellie and Din going in there looking for a bear to wrestle.
Oh.
Yeah, that was funny.
And they were like pointing out the bear to us, and we were like, "That's not quite right."
Oh, there were plenty of bears.
There were
in that
plenty of
bar.
bears.
Right.
There was plenty of bears.
I love how that spawned a 25 episode arc of just trying to wrestle a fucking bear.
Hey, we got it. We did it. We did it.
I don't know. We should go back and do a counter. How many times Din wanted to go find a bear and wrestle it?
Yes.
It's gotta be in the double digits at least.
At least.
In the first episode, Din asked Ellie if she knew where she could find a bear to wrestle. And then Ellie was on a quest to find a bear.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, if Paige could have joined us tonight, I think she would have probably said, that her main goal in life was to wrestle a bear.
Wrestle bear. I agree.
Yeah.
I also did love when they were peeking in the hole and Marquise caught them and they just wanted a signed autograph. And lo and behold, he was working at the bookstore I went to the next day, where Ellie got her famed collection, the 6 works of Marquise.
Mm-hmm.
Was it only 6? I thought it was like 7 or 8.
No, there's 6 of them. Ellie just
okay.
keeps talking about more volumes from the new journey.
Oh,
And-
that's right. I think you're starting to write the next volume.
Yes. And we joked that the volumes were all written by my character in a one-shot.
Oh, yeah.
Caldwell.
Yeah.
I wonder, Christian, question for you. Did you think that Josh would make you famous?
Actually...
Or did you think that that's how the fame would go?
So, the fame was planned.
Okay.
Well, so I was not sure to what degree or what avenues the fame would take. I'm still concerned about where else it will lead. But yeah, I think this is quite an interesting journey into the learning more about these books, of which is canon that I'm pretty sure is entirely made by you.
I drop a new lore piece almost every episode
Yes.
randomly about the books, about your romantic partners, and about the like cases that you fight, and just everything. Just a little bit. I love it.
Yeah, no, it was definitely all planned from the beginning.
And Ellie eats it up. Ellie eats up that you're famous, because Ellie likes to read. She did a lot of reading when she was growing up, because that's really all that there was for her to do besides go out into the woods. And to meet somebody who is the star of a series of books is like bewildering to her.
I can see how that would be quite the experience for someone, especially because the VR society are fairly closed off.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I can see how that would. Not only are you experiencing society, you like day one meet someone famous in said society. Yeah, that's. I'm. You've got to be feeling, or Ellie has to be feeling like she's kind of got it made already, right?
Yeah, I don't know if she feels like she got it made, but the people that she's met, that she's around all the time, are all so interesting, and they have such interesting pasts. And I mean, like, she's fascinated by Milos because he's related to royalty, and
Yes.
Milos talks about how it's not really like that and it's not a big deal, and it probably isn't, but to Ellie, it is fascinating because she reads in books about kings and queens and royalty and all of this stuff. So she's thinking, I know there's a celebrity, there's a royal person, there's these people that can do these massive spells and magic. Like, it's flabbergasting to her, because the only people that she's ever been around is summoners and her mom, who is a hunter, and that's it. I mean, she's had very little interaction with other people.
You went from 0 to 100
Yeah.
Real quick.
Yes.
It just.
Yes. I'm interested to know how the other characters think of Marquise's fame.
I would probably guess that Milos isn't really like impressed or anything by it, because obviously, like, he has people come through the Oasis that are famous or claim to be famous, right? And I'm sure that the Queen has people visit that are of royal blood. So I probably have met royalty before. So being a famous investigator, I don't think holds as much clout for Milos. But he also doesn't have, like, I mean, this is probably the first professional investigator he's ever met. So it's not like, I don't know. It'd be like if you've never heard of Stephen King and you met Stephen King,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, oh, you're a writer? Cool. I've never heard of you,
Yeah.
but that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you're famous? Cool. I've never read any of your books. You know what I
Right,
mean? Like,
right.
that, that they are famous, but it doesn't
Mhm.
really matter to you. It doesn't affect you in that way. You're not starstruck or anything.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I think Becky is. I don't know if she doesn't care about the fame, but I think she definitely, just considering her start to this adventure, she does see Marquis as kind of like this font of like power, like a way for her to maybe gain connections to move up in society somehow if she gets close to him. That's not to say that she hasn't developed some sort of respect for him, since he is obviously this powerful alchemist, and that he's also, fairly wise. And also, I think the moment she saw that he could not get into the far plane, that like piqued her interest. Like, I would say that of all the characters, like, he was the first one she gained a real interest in, just because he had a lot of mystery behind him. And so I would say that she is kind of drawn to that. But also, Becky being a fairly private person herself, she doesn't want to delve too deeply into Marquis' history, because that's his business.
All right. Next question. Leading into it, I suppose. So, one of the last nights that we were in Adalas, Becky has a dream. And she meets someone. something. What was it called? Diablos? Was that who it was? Or
I believe it's Diabolos.
Diabolos. That's right. Diablos is from Monster Hunter. Diabolos. And I don't really know how much, to the extent the party even knows about what happened, what occurred. But I'm wondering, like, how does Becky feel about this contract that she's formed with him and the debt that she's going to owe him one day and the powers that she's being granted by him?
Mm-hmm. In retrospect, I think Becky, looking back on it, maybe now that she's kind of grown a little bit, she's thinking maybe this was a dumb deal. Maybe I could have found power some other way. And it's true that, like, she had magic before she met Diabolos, but also she, in her own personal story, has a very great obstacle to overcome. And so basically any chance to obtain power, she's going for it. And so even though she regrets it, like, it is a means to an end. It is what it is. I think she's a little scared because she doesn't know, she didn't receive the terms to this contract. She doesn't know what she has to pay back into this. Later on, when we met Mother Matoya, Mother Matoya did reveal to her that there might be a way to get out of this contract, or to kind of twist the terms so as to meet them without actually doing anything too terrible. And so I think that it does ride on Becky's conscience now a little bit, that, you know, one day without provocation, she might be called to do something that she truly will regret.
Well, the last bit of our time in Adalas was a bit kind of chaotic, to be honest. Mm-hmm. We found out that the Grand Maester was murdered, and we did it, I guess. Thankfully, our new friend at the cubbyhole helped us escape. And we made a mad dash out of the city, only to be caught by the same lady who arrested us after the chase scene at the beginning of our time in the city. But she let us go because she wanted us to get information back to her revolving more around the Grand Maester's death, because I don't think she thinks we killed him, probably, and also probably that we're capable of doing that, because, I mean, look at us.
Yeah.
And she helped us get out of the city, and which really brings us to part 2, I guess. Okay, well, I think that is where we will end this chunk of going back in time and reviewing everything that's happened up to this date. This first chunk was Adalas and our fighting Titan. So join us back next week. We're going to discuss our first time traveling together as a group and all of the chaos that we encounter while we do so. Thanks, bye!
Bye.
Follow, like, and subscribe and stuff.
Thank you for tuning in to the Campaigns of the Plains channel. Catch new material every Friday on YouTube, and make sure to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook.